Anemoiapolis, or anime-apolis as the protagonist calls it,
Anime-apolis?
is the latest liminal space game that everyone's been buzzing about. When you bring up liminal spaces, most people instantly think of the Backrooms. And while the Backrooms did have a huge impact on the genre, the concept has been bouncing around the internet for a lot longer than that. I talked a bit about liminal spaces in my last Backrooms video, but the gist of it is a space that you pass through but were never meant to linger in. This means different things for each person, but it's often associated with nostalgia, unease, and a little bit of horror. But like I said in my last video on the topic, with hundreds of Backrooms games out there, the concept stagnated a long time ago. So why is everyone talking about Anemoiapolis when mountains of other liminal games flew under the radar? Well, I think the initial hype behind this largely comes down to visuals. Compared to the countless drab yellow Backrooms games, there's a lot more variety to look at here. It's got the typical hallways and empty malls you'd expect to see, but there's a lot of distinct areas with unique styles to help break things up. And of course, there's the shiny tiles, water features, and all the screen space reflections you could ever ask for. Of all the levels in this game, the water one was my favorite visually. It goes beyond the Dead Mall theme and mixes in some nice vaporwave aesthetics. But I couldn't say it was my favorite level to actually play, which brings me to the meat of this video. Is this game really worth playing? Don't let those shiny screenshots fool you. This is very much a micro-budget indie game made largely by a solo developer. If you've played a few itch.io horror games before, you pretty much know what you're in for. Lots of walking through repeating, maze-like rooms that mostly all look the same. In between, there's a small puzzle here and there to help break things up. Oh, and you also collect tickets on the ground to encourage exploration, I guess. The game actually locks most of the levels behind tickets, but if you just look around a bit, you'll have more than enough to continue on. There aren't any threats, but I know that a large portion of this game's audience finds liminal spaces absolutely terrifying. I didn't think this game was scary at all, but I also don't think liminal spaces are really scary on their own, without some sort of context or atmosphere behind it. The scariest part of this game was when the protagonist said, "Is there something in here with me?" in a dingy locker room maze. Of course, there wasn't actually anything in there, but the implication was probably the only mildly horror part of my whole experience. On the other hand, the game is actually pretty chill in some spots. There's some funky vaporwave mall music playing throughout, which may seem like background noise, but it hits that nostalgia spot just right. Props to whoever made the music for this. It's a great reprieve from wandering these endless maze-like corridors. Speaking of endless corridors, this game likes to pull the classic indie horror trick of changing the level layout as you move through it. There isn't any real puzzle to solve in these sections, so you're forced to just roam around continuously repeating segments until the game shows you the exit. Much like the recent discussion over Skinamarink, some people will find this terrifying, while others will just be frustrated. I personally found the labyrinth sections interesting at first, but by the 5th time I walked through the same room, I was pretty much done with them. Overall, I don't mind them being included to fit the liminal themes, but I really think they could be cut down a bit. Although there's this one level in the game, the conference halls, which seem to be an endlessly generated maze, but is actually just one massive level. I probably spent around 20 minutes completely lost in this level with no distinguishing features until I stumbled my way back to the entrance to continue on with the game. I don't think this one is even required for the story, so if you do play this game, just skip this level altogether. The best levels in this game were the ones where you actually have something to do. Solving minor puzzles and finding ways to traverse through these foreign spaces was the highlight of my playtime. In the end, this is just chapter 1 of the game, so there's always room for improvement and innovation in the future. I think more than anything, this game does a good job of capturing the essence of liminal spaces. It may not be scary, but it scratches that itch way better than any Backrooms game. It's not the most enjoyable experience when you're wandering for minutes on end with almost nothing going on, but the more vibrant levels do make up for that. Overall, I think this will probably be a pretty divisive title. I think it'll find a niche audience that really vibes with it, but I can't recommend it to everyone. although it is a very solid first step for an up-and-coming solo developer. Not something I'd go back to replay, but I'm definitely interested to see where the dev takes it in the future. So that's my thoughts on Anemoiapolis. Now if anybody wants to make anime-apolis, the liminal anime horror game, I'm all ears. If you want to support the dev, I'll leave a link to the game down below. Otherwise, maybe you'd be interested in the Backrooms retrospective I did a few months back. I'll drop a link to that one too. Anyways, I've got a lot more indies to look into, so I hope to see you all in the next one.